Black Swan. That's what everybody keeps saying, the Black Swan event. What's it going to be? Earthquake in Taiwan. China, an invasion? World War III? What is the Black Swan? Perhaps it's bird flu. We've long been worried about another pandemic. 4 years ago, we had one, basically crippled our election system and opened the door for some ballot harvesting. And now we're getting news reports of measles, bird flu, and monkeypox. Yeah, honestly, maybe nothing. The bird flu is the most worrying because it has a very high mortality rate. So we've got conspiracies flying wild. People are saying weather satellites are down. This eclipse is coming next week. Episode 999 of Timcast IRL on the day of the eclipse. What could happen? Black Swan. The New York Times reports person infected with bird flu in Texas after contact with cattle. The case adds another worrying wrinkle to a global outbreak that has devastated bird and marine mammal populations and recently appeared in cattle herds. Now, I got a question for you. The mortality rate of COVID was, I think, like twice that of the flu. It was, it's funny because if you called it a bad flu, they'd ban you. But it was like twice that, I believe. I could be wrong. I thought COVID was pretty bad. I don't know if it was as bad as they thought it was going to be initially, but it was the worst illness I've ever had. I've had the flu before, and I remember being a teenager, and I'm like, you know, I was like 18. No, I think I was like 17 or 18. Strapping young lad, had the flu, lost like 10 pounds in 2 days. It was nuts. I was shaking and shivering, and I was like, this is the worst pain I've ever felt. Since then, of course, I felt substantially worse pain than having the flu, but I was very young. And then I got COVID. Got COVID now, what is it, like 3 years ago? Geez, 2.5 years ago. And it was so bad, I was actually thinking of going to the hospital. And so I called, and they told me it's a virus. Do nothing, lay down, go to bed. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I was hyperventilating. My temperature was low. Heart rate was high. And so, long story short, talked to Rogan. He helped me out quite a bit. Shout out Joe. He's a good dude. And got over it. Started to eat better and focus on my health. And I did keto for a few years, lost a lot of weight. I think it was being 200 pounds. I was overweight. That was causing the problem. And it was like the most I've ever weighed in my life, I think. And so now I'm just trying to, figure out how to do things better. Recently, I switched from low carb and moderate exercise to high exercise and full personal trainer routine. So I just said maximum burn, baby. Let's roll. But the reason I bring this up is I got a question for you. COVID, as bad as it was, you had people who are like, people still mask to this day. It's crazy. But knowing the mortality rate was, I don't know, like it was still in the it was lower than a single percentage point. It was like 0.3 or something. Many people were like, let me choose. The mortality rate for bird flu is ridiculously high. Let me pull this up. Mortality rate, bird flu. I think it's like, what is it, like 30%? 56! Whoa. That's crazier than I thought. That can't be right. Is that right? From January 1st, 03 to February 24, a total of 254 cases of human infection with avian influenza, H5N1, have been reported from 4 countries within the Western Pacific region. Of these cases, 56% were fatal. Now, that's scary. Yeah, I got to be honest. A greater than percentage chance of dying? Interesting question. We talked about this on IRL, and this is why, Ian is great. A lot of people don't like him. He derails, whatever it is you might say about him, but he does often come up with things outside of the political sphere, which we may not think about. And he said, and we were like, the lockdowns are bad. They shouldn't mandate this. And he goes, what about airborne Ebola? That's a good point, actually. If they institute these lockdowns over bird flu, how are you going to feel about them? I think most of us concluded in that conversation, lockdowns should not be allowed. You choose to go out during a pandemic. That is your choice. Daddy government shouldn't say, mommy government, nanny government, because other people are scared, you can't do a thing. If you want to go out when people have bird flu and a 56% mortality rate, if there really is a pandemic with bird flu, you choose to do it. What's the argument? They'll probably lock things down. I'll tell you this. If we do get a bird flu pandemic, as this has been one of the black swans that people are scared about, we probably at Timcast, we probably will stop doing guests. During Timcast IRL in 2020, we actually didn't have guests for a long time. We started with periodic guests. It was mostly me and Adam. That was mostly it. And then we started adding guests. But then, and it was like one-on-one guests. So it was more like the culture war, to be completely honest. We didn't really know what we were doing. Now it's a nightly conversational topical news show with a rotating guests who are typically political commentators. And the culture war is more so our debate show. If we were to get a lockdown and bird flu, I think I got to be honest. I don't agree with mandated lockdowns and mandated vaccination or any of that stuff. But I would personally probably choose to lock things down and have most people work from home if they could, to isolate. I would absolutely do that. But it should still be our choice. That's always been the big issue. If you want to quarantine, it's your choice. If you want to mask up, it's your choice. If you don't want to and you get sick, that's on you. You want the vaccine? Your choice. Should not be government mandate. We didn't take COVID as seriously. I got it. It was bad. But we still went out, didn't care to wear masks. Because in West Virginia, nobody cared. There were very few places that actually cared. If we went to Maryland or D.C., yeah, they usually would. There was one place in Maryland that I told the story before where it's like we were standing 5 feet from a table and they were like, put your mask on. And I'm like, but if I sit down, I don't have to wear the mask. This is ridiculous. If it's a bird flu, I am genuinely concerned about a 56% mortality rate. I imagine it would get a lot lower. The mortality rate we're looking at with bird flu is very rare cases. So there's special circumstances here. But I'm not a virologist or an expert. I'd imagine the mortality rate would drop substantially due to medical efforts. But even if we're talking about 20 or 30% death, 1 in 5 chance of dying? Yeah, I'm not really interested in that. And while I'm not in a risk category, 38-year-old man, typically those of us that are around this age aren't really at great risk. I totally understand the argument about I have loved ones who are older and there are young children, and that's what we have to be concerned about. I don't think it made much sense for COVID. But bird flu is a whole other story if the mortality rate stands at 56%. What would you do? I mean it. If we really got to a pandemic, I think what would happen is IRL would mostly go guestless. Yeah, it would be probably just the Timcast employees. We'd probably say like limit interactions because we want the show to keep going. I know Joe Rogan tried doing Zoom over digital shows. It doesn't work, man. It really doesn't work. You watch Bill Maher when they bring on a guest on the TV and it doesn't work. They're not a part of the conversation. It's just not as good. When you have people sitting here in front of you, there's just something totally different about that real conversation hanging out with friends. So that's probably what we would do. We really would. And fortunately, we're out in the middle of nowhere. We have tremendous emergency supplies. So, hey, that's how we'd handle it. I'll see, though. But let me just let you know where we're at. 53 cases of measles in Chicago. That's crazy. On March 4th, what did they say? Measles infections related to an outbreak at Chicago migrant shelter have proliferated from 1 case on March 4th to 53 as of Monday. Measles? You got to be kidding me. And now they're coming out in their bag. It's because people don't want to get vaccinated. Dude, it's because they're bringing in people unvetted, okay? Certainly, I hope you got your measles vaccine, but hey, I'm not a doctor, so talk to your doctor. You do not want to get measles. And then we got monkeypox. Oh, come on. Monkeypox cases nearly double what they were at the same time last year, CDC says. There is a national year-to-date estimate of 511 cases of mid-March. Blech. Oh, that one's just bad. What do we do? Hopefully, this is a one-off case of bird flu. They say at least one person in Texas has been diagnosed with bird flu after having contact with dairy cows presumed to be infected. Now they're gonna take our milk from us. They're gonna say, what do we do? There were some chickens, I believe, they found to have bird flu. So they culled the flock and they shut down mass egg production. Now, for me, being as smart as I am, and of course being a better man and the envy of lesser men, I have chickens. And those chickens produce eggs. And we eat those eggs. And we bake with those eggs. We went down to the river, got a fire going, got a pan, and fried some eggs, put it on, made little sandwiches. There is nothing more delicious. No one could argue. There's nothing more delicious. No one could argue against this. than cooking food out in the wilderness over an open flame. It's a dry piece of bread with egg and cheese. No fancy spices or sauces, but nothing beats that. And the egg came right from my own chicken's butt. For many of you, you may go without chickens. You may go without chicken or eggs. Us here, well, the chickens make more of themselves and then we eat them. We ate a bunch of the roosters. I hope y'all are taking this stuff seriously because they are warning a black swan event is around the corner. I suppose my final question on this before we head to before we wrap up for the day is just for the morning show. How would you handle this? And what do we do now in the event we do get the bird flu pandemic many have warned about? Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. The actual segment is the Timcast IRL live show. So come hang out, youtube.com/TimcastIRL. We'll see you all then.